Your attention, please. Paul and Alex are required to proceed to the gate immediately.
What?
No way.
What is happening here?
This is the last call for the Layovers podcast.
Really?
Come on, man. This is our thing. We got this.
Oh, yeah.
And we made it.
Of course, geeks.
Flight 54 to Brandenburg. No, of course not, to Schoenfeld. Hi, Alex.
Yeah, there's so many stories with this airport. So many stories.
You just went there, you were asking me, should I go Tegel, should I go Schoenfeld? I have a slight preference for Tegel, but I think you did Schoenfeld, right?
We did, yeah, we did. And I didn't know that you'd be able to see this new, maybe new, one day new airport in Berlin from Schoenfeld, and I'll tell that story a little bit later, but yeah, geez, what a train wreck.
Yeah, these airports are not truly up to standards. I mean, they're okay. I mean, you'll tell the story about Schoenfeld. We'll do Tegel one day, and maybe in 10 years down the line when we'll have still this show on, we'll do Brandenburg, where it will be Well, so this is the podcast where we talk about first world problems. A lot of people always say, guys, we travel vicariously with you because you guys are always going in the front of the cabin. It's actually not true, but this time it is, and this episode will be, because obviously, Alex, because I just had flown for the first time, Cathay Pacific had to one-up me, had to kind of say, okay, Paul, you know what? I'm going to take the challenge. And you flew Cathay Pacific in a better class than me, which means first. So go tell the story because I'm jealous, and I'm just going to leave and have a coffee when you say that because I hate you.
You know, it was amazing, and it was all
an accident, right?
Lucky. Yeah, it was an accident. No, it wasn't an accident. It was an F-up on my part.
Oh, because I should have actually led with that, because everybody knows us as the people. We usually do these crazy travels, and we have these amazing schedules, and we're very, like, almost anal about doing this, and you effed up a travel by missing a day. I mean, God, what?
Yeah,
Alex!
You know,
Alex.
And I was so embarrassed and I was kicking myself. But it was one of those things where the flight was at 5 past midnight. I just assumed, like, I want at the very end of this day, not 5 minutes into the next day. And of course, I did the flight 24 hours too early because I needed to do London, Hong Kong, Paris, because I had a speaking gig in Paris. I'd booked it a day too early. So I would have really I would have been in Hong Kong for maybe, 16 hours. Which was barely enough to do the commitment I had there on the ground, let alone actually enjoy it. But when I called and tried to fix it, the flight to Paris was full. And I was like, oh, man. And then I said, okay, well, look, anywhere in Western Europe is fine, and I'll figure it out from there. And everywhere was full. London, Amsterdam, the timing for Dusseldorf didn't work out. Zurich, a few others didn't. If they had seats, they didn't have good connections onto Paris for me, or Orly or Charles de Gaulle. So eventually, I was working with the travel agent because they had booked it for me, so I couldn't fix it myself. And she found a flight to Frankfurt, and I was like, "Frankfurt's fine. There's a million flights to Paris from Frankfurt. It'll be fine." So she took care of it, and I ate the change fee, which wasn't the end of the world. But then she sends me the ticket and it says first. And I was like, well, I was only supposed to be in business class. And I went and looked, and business was sold out, and they were selling business as a first class seat, which I'd never seen before, but it was basically the same price. So if you looked for business class on Cathay, it was showing as available, but it was with the sort of asterisk saying first class. And so I went and I was like, this is clearly a typo. This is clearly a mistake. But I pulled up the reservation, and sure, no, I mean, it was the same price as business class. So yeah, it was purely through my own stupidity and complete disregard for time zones that I got to fly in first class on Cathay.
In a nutshell, first, you completely missed one day. I mean, this never happened to me, I think. No, I'm like so freaked out about doing this, especially when I fly Emirates. You have these flights leaving at like 5 minutes past midnight, and I check like 5 times. I'm like, is it really the day I want to leave? But also, you use an external travel agent, because both of us, when we have speaking engagements or clients, we try to avoid as much as possible to rely on travel agents, not because they're bad, but because then it's not flexible, because you have to call them if you have to change a flight or whatever.
That's the only reason why I don't like doing it.
You were telling me, because of course I was living through all what Alex just said live, and you said, well, look, I think she made a mistake. And I was like, so I should actually think of using a travel agent, because if a travel agent actually upgrades me in first without me knowing, I would actually love that.
I'm not 100% sure that she knew either.
No,
I think she just booked whatever fare bucket was available, and since they were selling first as technically as business class, I'd never seen that before, where they roll J availability up into first. I'd never seen that, but I was hardly going to argue.
I've been upgraded at the gate for that at a few points, especially Emirates, because, you know, with higher status, I mean, they will bump you, but I've never actually had that. So, to the actual product, how was it?
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. I flew over on business class, which was fantastic. You know, you've experienced that. I got to use the first class lounge at Heathrow, which is really, really good. The first and business lounge at Cathay are just amazing in Heathrow. I can't remember if we talked about this in the previous episode, but the first has got a great view. It's quiet. It's really comfortable and cozy. The business class lounge has got a phenomenal restaurant, the noodle bar, and all of that stuff. Business class was great. The first class lounge, which you've been to in Hong Kong, the pier, the new one, is incredible.
Yeah, it is.
And I spent a long time there. I spent about 4 hours at the airport because I had a few conference calls I needed to do.
Yeah, right. You wanted to be in the pier
that
for
too.
4 hours.
But it was like the option was, do I stay in my hotel room and, you know, just make it to the airport in time? Because my conference calls were obviously in the UK. Or do I go to the airport early and work from the lounge? Have a Betsy. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The first class was amazing. You know, we talked about this on Twitter with our friend and dear listener, Kobus in South Africa. Is the physical product better than Emirates? No, absolutely not. It's still very, very good. It's sort of a slight herringbone configuration, really wide, comfortable seat, very comfortable bed, lovely thick duvet and pillow. They give you these, they work with a company, and I'm just picking up the bag right now. This company called Pi, P-Y-E in Hong Kong, who are a local kind of tailor and clothing company. And so you get these beautiful linen bags that are branded with Cathay with your pajamas in them, which were like traditional Chinese button-up, no-collar pajamas, and these lovely slippers.
I actually have one set. I never flew first, but I have one set. I'll tell the story afterwards.
They're really good. They're really comfortable. Yeah, so the seat's great. The IFE is great. That doesn't change from business class. The food was excellent, and it was like...
come on, of course.
You know, you get the caviar, and I was telling my wife the other night, you know, they bring you the caviar, and they say, and of course it's with the mother of pearl spoon and with the chopped egg. I don't eat caviar very often, so I was like, oh, okay, yes, of course it comes with the chopped egg. I was just about to ask where the chopped egg was. And, you know, I knew about the mother of pearl spoon because apparently that will make sure that the metal doesn't react with the caviar.
Yeah.
And then, of course, incredible vintage champagne and all that.
Krug is it on? Yeah.
Which is great. The problem was that push back 5 past midnight, you're not really in the air until 1:45 in the morning. And then we had really, really severe turbulence for the first 3 hours of the flight. The cabin crew had to strap in for like the 45 minutes of it. The captain told us ahead of time, you know, there's a jet stream that runs across this part of China that we're going to go. We don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know how severe it's going to be, but just so you know. And sure enough, we did. The captain was great and said, this is what's happening and this is the data I'm seeing. I think it's probably going to last another 15 minutes. It lasted about 25 minutes more. But you really couldn't enjoy the meal because, you know, you had your starter, then the crew had to strap in, and then they brought the rest of it, then they had to strap in again. So it was disjointed. That's not their fault at all, of course.
Of course not. No, of course not. Yeah.
But I think, you know, physical product is good. You know, the food is good. Are they better than some of the Middle Eastern carriers, maybe Singapore Airlines? No. But what makes it was the service, the little handwritten note that I got with my meal, welcome back, and, you know, all of that stuff. Just the attention to detail, the conversations. There were 6 seats in first class, 3 flight attendants, which is amazing. Yeah. The breakfast, which is always terrible on airplanes, was really good. Just, it was a complete experience, which is what I always appreciate, you know, in my professional life as well, looking at customer experience.
Same, yeah.
The entire package, not just...
Yeah, that's what we're looking for, right? We're
exactly.
Looking for this, yeah, exactly. When we work with clients, we work at these kind of seamless, almost a convergent, like it seems that everything is the seams are all very well lined up. This is what the experience should be, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this is why, even though I agree probably, I've only seen the seat walking past it on our latest flight with CX. But even though the seat might not have a door, for instance, like Asiana or Etihad or obviously Emirates, at the end of the day, does that really matter? It's really the overall experience that you want and pay for. If you pay that kind of prices, which we don't pay, obviously. But
Well, no, exactly. I know it was the little touches, I think. And I really appreciate the fact that they're working hard to partner with a lot of Hong Kong brands. So I had a Betsy in flight, which is the first time I had it in flight, and you're absolutely
how was
spot
it?
on. It tastes different
right.
and better.
Yeah, see, yeah, exactly. It's perfect in flight. So that's and I really hope they don't discontinue it, because they were saying that it was only like 3-6 months. I don't remember. I really hope they actually will continue it, because it's also, by the way, guys, it's also available in economy, right? It's not only reserved to first class passengers. If you fly CX and if you like beer, try it. It's really worth the experience in the air. It's really, really well made, honestly.
Yeah, it was really, really good. And just the whole experience. I loved having the 4 windows available to look at, although it was a night flight for most of it. That didn't really, it was good. The whole package was fantastic. The food was fresh and well presented. It was great. It was really, really impressive. I love Cathay. They're going through a really tough time. They just laid off 600 people.
Yeah, I was about to say that. They just, it's the biggest round of job cuts in 20 years. It's actually pretty, I mean, we said, remember, like multiple episodes that this was coming for the summer. It's early summer maybe, but it's a big one, right?
It is a big one. But you don't feel it. I mean, the service was exemplary. Morale seemed high. So yeah, I wish them the best, because it's a great product. And like I said, I appreciate them working so hard to reinforce their Hong Kong route with working with Hong Kong brands.
Yeah, no, I agree. Coming back to these layoffs, they're looking at a 30% cost reduction at HQ in Hong Kong. Some people say that they should also kind of let go a little bit of the Swire mentality and go a bit
there's been a few articles about that, isn't there, where they've said, look, you need to stop hiring from within your own gene pool. And bring in some fresh. But although because they have a new CEO, they have Rupert Hogg, who was the COO for a while, and I think we'll give him a chance, because he's had to make some tough decisions from the beginning, and he hasn't been in the position that long. So good luck, guys, because you do great work.
They want to save 4 billion Hong Kong dollars within the next 3 years. So that's a lot. I mean, you mentioned the Middle East, obviously, but also the Chinese airlines are also eating in their market, which is the reason where they all Cathay Dragon play, actually, because they need to go there as well. So, I mean, I flew them only once, but it's very easy to fall in love with such a company. And I know, because I've had that first world problems, I've had people telling me, and now probably they will tell you, because you've spoken about that experience, that, guys, in economy is not the case. Obviously in economy it's not, but that's in every airline, and we know that a lot of what we talk about in this podcast is sometimes first world problems, but still you can admire when a company does a great product, whether it's soft or hard product. Emirates has also, I mean, there's differences, right? It's a younger company. Emirates is a great product. Probably, I would say that in terms of the pajamas, since we're talking about pajamas, my favorite pajama is actually not Emirates. I have like quite a few, because I always keep them after my flights. I even have like many versions, they've evolved over time, because I think the first time I was in first class on Emirates might have been 6-7 years ago. So now there's a slightly different. The best one is actually Asiana. It's my favorite one. Yeah, it's also like, no collar. It's a zipper though, this one, but it's a very, very, very comfortable one. And I keep that preciously. I don't even use it too much. I don't want to, because I will not have the chance to fly Asiana first very, very often. That was my long flight, remember, from Incheon to JFK's like 14 hours last year. I wanted to say, because I forgot last time about CX. Do you have a favorite type of eye shade?
That's
is there
a good
airline
question.
That does?
You know what? I've got the Cathay one in front of me right here. I like this one. The Emirates one is really good as well. This one is like super soft.
I was about to say that.
But I have a huge head. So it's
You're very smart.
Some of them, well, yeah, that too, but some of them struggle to contain my my cranium. And this one does. So well done, Cathay.
I was the other day, stupid story. I was the other day at security at Heathrow. It was super early, and the guy, I got randomized on the X-ray. So like I have to go through the machine, like you have to put your hands up, and when you go out, the guy says, "Anything sharp on you?" And I look at him, saying, "Besides my mind, nothing." And then I say, "What the hell?" Thank God he actually laughed at it. That was really bad. So yeah, the reason I asked you that is because up to now, for me, by far my favorite eye shade was the first class of Emirates. It's really soft, and also especially what I enjoy is that it doesn't ruin your ears after like several hours of actually wearing them. Some of the other, we have like these very thin elastic bands. After a while, it really gets like inside of your skin or something, and I really dislike them. So. And I only had the Cathay Pacific business class, but it's up to that standard. It's very, very nice.
Yeah, these are great.
I travel with them now because I always have a set of Emirates first class with me, and now I actually kept the Cathay Pacific because even sometimes, at hotels and I'm jet lagged and I want to sleep, I will put these kind of eye shades on. They're really, really good.
It's one of the most underrated travel tips. I always carry one of these eye shades and a set of earplugs because more and more, and again, as Paul says, contrary to popular belief, I certainly travel in the cheap seats more than I travel in the pointy end, and more long haul carriers, even the quote unquote full service ones, don't provide them anymore. Even if you want to take a nap or on EasyJet, if you're doing a 2.5, 3 hour flight at 11 o'clock at night, which I just did last week, the lights are on the whole time because they have things they need to sell you.
Yep.
So it's actually, you know what? That reminds me. There's one thing that part of the CX first class experience that sucked, and that was the amenity kit.
Oh.
Terrible. So bad that I just left it. I collect them.
Yeah, me too. Oh my God, I didn't know that. Me too.
It was like it was just like a bunch of crap was thrown in there. It wasn't like, even the business class one, I don't think I have it with me. But
I have one. Yeah.
Everything was slotted into the little elastic band. This was just a bunch of stuff dumped, and I almost feel like I got somebody else's secondhand one. It was really bad. And, I look at the Emirates business one, and it's got all these like Bulgari scents and all that stuff. And again,
they have like a nice leather pouch. I think they changed. Now leather is only on first. Because again, they were involving. I've also had Thai and Asiana. I remember they have these a small Rimowa suitcase, like a lookalike of a suitcase, but super tiny. And you have these are like nice to keep, but like BA is disappointing, I find as well. It's like a pouch where a few things thrown inside. But I have the CX one, but I didn't use it, so I didn't actually even open it. I have it there. But
their business one is good. The first one was it was really, really bad. It's such a small thing, but it was part of the experience, like we just talked about, and it was not good.
By the way, it's strange how sometimes actually I forget that I collect them when I'm on a trip, especially when I do multiple legs, and actually keep them in my carry-on, and nobody says anything at security.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it happens many times to me. Then I forget that I have like some face cream or whatever they give you, and I forget to put it in the plastic bag you're supposed to put them in, and nobody says anything.
That's true. In fact, I did that when I did my 4 legs on Emirates almost around the world, and I hoarded all of them. Never once did I get any issue with that.
Yeah.
That's actually a bit disturbing.
The other day, I was for the first time, again, tired, not the same morning, just experienced another morning because, this tendency of taking the first flights out. These past weeks, I've taken 20 legs, and every single one leaving from Heathrow was always the 6:30 a.m., the very early ones, because I like those flights. I always regret it when I put the alarm clock, but I like leaving early. And I forgot to actually remove my belt. So I had removed everything, and I passed through. I was like, actually, probably, I was within the
some of them
the acceptable levels,
thing,
right? Yeah, exactly. And I had nothing else on me because then I was looking on the on the tray. Where's my belt? Where's my belt? And like, oh, it's on me. Anyway. So before we move on to more travels, because you've done as well a few ones, I want to acknowledge a few of the guys that have left us reviews, because it's always so kind of you guys to do that, whether it's on Facebook and especially on iTunes. So thank you so much. I have here Packle's Not My Name from Germany. The title of the review is Make Aviation News Great Again.
Oh.
I'm a proud aviation enthusiast doing a wonderful job sharing their insights. I personally like the episodes when they have guest speakers. We keep promising you. Yeah, we need to do that. But it's like, again, look, I've been that's my 3rd day in London in the month of May, so since we last recorded. And I'm leaving tomorrow morning again, first flight out to Madrid with the 777, actually. That's really cool.
That is cool.
So we're winging it currently because we both are under very heavy travels. We'll starting in the summer, we'll have more time, and then we'll invite obviously guests again. So we promise you that. He hopes to meet us at one point in person, and he also commends us on the sound quality. We're trying.
We're very, very aware of the sound quality. Took us a long time to get there, but we got there in the end.
Yeah, finally, after like 50 plus episodes. iTunes, also another 5 stars from Hubu, best airline product podcast ever. Thank you so much.
That's
really
kind.
Cool to say, yeah. And we also get like a few messages at GER_NS. Gerardo say that congrats to a really interesting podcast. I'm halfway through all the episodes.
Oh my God, you're a glutton for punishment, man.
But he will actually witness this evolution of sound.
That's
and also
true.
probably the speed, because you remember when I listened to the first episodes, I mean, not that I do that very often, but I'm like, we were slow and some stuff didn't work. It's really funny to see that. And we also, and I'll finish with that, we had a message from 777 Emirates captain.
Yeah,
actually.
that was so cool.
That's so cool. He says, keep up the good work and maybe see ya on one of my flights soon. Well, you know what? I will clearly tell you next time I'm flying, because I'm flying to Manila, probably on Emirates this July. So I will clearly actually ask you if you're the captain, because I would just even have a peek on the flight deck. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate that. It's really, really cool.
That's so cool. Thank you for taking the time to do that, guys.
Talking about the flight deck and captains, this news, obviously everybody shared it, and it's so fun. The King of the Netherlands, who has been
Wonderful story.
hiding the fact that for the past 20 years he's been he was not the captain, he was a first officer. Well, he kept actually doing, I think, twice a week he was doing short haul with KLM, the national carrier of the Netherlands. How cool is that?
It's so cool on a Fokker.
Yeah, on a Fokker. And I think the story came out because since KLM is winding down Fokkers, he's actually retraining currently for 737s.
Yeah.
And I think that's how the story went out. But I mean, come on, this is amazing.
It's wonderful. Several members of the royal family here are pilots, including
Yes.
Prince William and Prince Harry, but none of them, I don't recall, have ever flown commercially that we know about.
That we know about.
Maybe one of them's a senior captain with BA and we just haven't heard, but I just think this is a lovely story. So
it's
cool.
Amazing, yeah. And he says that since he's been the first officer, so he was actually the one, doing the PA announcement, but he would only announce the name of the captain. He would never actually acknowledge his own name. So people might have maybe sometimes recognized his voice, he admits, but that's as far as it goes. Maybe people will give him strange looks like, you remind me of someone.
Yeah,
actually.
exactly.
But such a great story. It's such a great story, honestly. Such a great story. So what other trips have you done?
On the back of, when I went to Frankfurt, I then jumped on a Lufthansa flight to Paris, and that was fine.
Charles de Gaulle.
To Charles de Gaulle, yeah.
Oh, but you remember that's when actually there was this one universe
We were
collapsing
in the
where
same
we're in the same city,
airspace.
but same airspace, same time. So
But that
go
was
on,
when,
sorry.
when I was in Paris, I flew out of Orly back to Heathrow.
Oh yeah, oh my God.
and I hadn't flown out of Orly probably since I was about 14 years old, and
So?
I've forgotten what a crap shack that airport is. It's nice to see how much they're like, you get out and you look at this detention center, but then you can see like they're building this beautiful glass terminal, so that's exciting. But the flight was in this weird pier almost of 4 gates maybe.
Yeah.
With a underground lounge, which was
It's not too bad.
the BA1.
Yeah, the PA1, the 212, whatever. I mean, it's not a great lounge, but come on. It's one of the only, I think, we talked about that when you had that as an airport. It's one of the only lounge past security.
Yes.
And it's, at least
It's
you have some
fine
views.
if there isn't standing room only.
Because your flight was delayed.
No. It was standing room only before it was delayed because
Oh my God.
And this is ridiculous. This is what frustrates me a little bit about BA. Yes, so the weather came in and there were like end of the world thunderstorms, and our flight was our inbound flight. I was watching it on Plane Finder. And I was watching it come in and I was like, okay, we're not going to be on time. Maybe we'll be about 20 minutes late. And then I watched it come in and come in and come in, and then altitude and speed increase. And they flew a missed approach, and we were all waiting in the priority line. By this point, there were 55 people in the priority boarding line and 6 people in the normal boarding. That's not an exaggeration. Those are the actual numbers because I counted them because I was like, this can't be right. And people were like cutting in, like waiting aside going, this obviously is not the priority boarding queue. I'm going to stand to the side of it. And then you'd have some of the more confident members of the British Airways Executive Club going, back of the queue, man. This is actually the line. Anyway, watch the flight come in again, come in for approach, and go around again.
Oh, my
and at
God.
that point, they gave it away and they diverted to Brussels.
Did you know why?
They couldn't, I went back because I'm going to include this in my attaché video. I found the air traffic control audio of missed approaches, and they did not sound like they were having a good time. I think they were either had a lightning strike or they were getting thrown around because they sounded stressed out. They went over to Brussels to get away from this weather because there was no way they were going to get into Paris, either airport.
Yeah,
so they went and they parked at Brussels and they waited for the weather to clear, and then they tried again. Meanwhile, a bunch of people were in the lounge and like literally standing room only. It was hotter than sin. So I just stayed in this terminal. Meanwhile, an Air France 777-300 was loading up to go to Reunion. And I was like,
why don't I go?
I'm going to come with you guys. It sounds way better than hanging around in this terminal for 4 hours. But eventually the flight landed safely, and that's really all you care about. You can't get mad about a weather delay. It's nobody's fault.
No, but it just happened.
It just happens.
That happens. But it's frustrating because then for you, I know you have your car, you still have to drive back home.
It had been a long
flight.
flight. I landed it at Frankfurt at 4:00 in the morning local. I don't think I got home until 1:00 in the morning. But that's what
No, it is what it is. Yeah. It's a very heavy season of speaking gigs. Both of us were traveling all around the world, so I've done quite a few as well. I'm not going to go through all the travels; they're not all very interesting. I've done Aegean. I hadn't done it for almost a year, to Athens. That was really, they're still really good, honestly. I mean,
they just posted a really big quarterly loss, didn't they?
I've read that as well, so I hope. I mean, it's nothing. It's 320s and 321s, and there's nothing out of the ordinary for Europe. It's still like normal seats and whatever. But I always I commend them for they trying a good quality of service, which sometimes lacks in other short hauls in Europe. So that was good. I flew quite a few times with Lufthansa as well. I was in Linate, so Milan, the small airport, the one is actually in Milan, not Malpensa, which is like in Spain or something, because you have to get like 5 hours to get there. And I had what you just experienced. It was the first in a very, very long time. We were like on final, we're like very close to the runway. Suddenly, like you feel the power of the thrust. You're like, my God, what's going on? And it was like he pulled up again, and that was really cool because the captain, after of course having to do a missed approach and kind of going up again and going to a holding pattern, went on the PA and explained us what happened, like step by step. And he said apparently the flight that had just taken off before we were supposed to land had hit something, probably an animal, on the runway, so they had to send vehicles to check like the runway was clear.
Oh wow.
So we had to wait then like 20 minutes in holding pattern and go, but that feeling, you're like almost like in a roller coaster. You're about the flight is descending and the speed is reduced, and suddenly boom, you're like, oh my God, what happened? In me it was like, oh, we have a flat tire or something, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that was quite impressive. So we'll talk about Linate one of these days. I've done also a few trips with Swiss, to my beloved Zurich airport, because it's always so good. I've done stops at Frankfurt, which is not my beloved Frankfurt, because you have to go through that tunnel that gets you forever. I don't understand. I mean, the tunnel, I get it, but I don't really understand the fact that there's a people mover, these like flat escalators. I don't know how you call them, but then at the end of it, there's no like escalators. It's just you have like either stairs or like one or maybe two lifts. It's a bit cramped, and I don't know why they never invested more than that. Probably because it's non-Schengen. We have to suffer through the fact that we are like outsiders. Interesting though, I stopped again in Munich, and I actually didn't realize that Munich. I was there, I land there, and I'm like, I don't know this part of the airport, and I don't know the name, the gate numbers. They're very strange. And it was empty, like completely empty, eerily empty. And then I had to go into a little subway, a little train that gets me to the main terminal. So they have a satellite that they just opened a year ago, apparently, and I didn't know that. And it's still like underutilized, but it's very nice. You said, I think, creepy, but I like it when you have like a empty terminals, almost brand new.
Yeah.
That looks like that's a nice feeling. I took a few pictures, of course, and filmed a bit as well. So that was really cool. So I'm saying to Frankfurt, you should also buy one of those trains actually to move us around. Not that I'm lazy, I like to walk, but this underpass is really bad.
Yeah.
The other thing, have you been in the first class lounge at Terminal 5 in Heathrow recently?
6 weeks ago.
Because you remember we talked, and I forgot to tell you, we talked about the fact that Blue Smart, I think I talked about Blue Smart in a galleries lounge. Actually, Blue Smart also had advertising in the first class lounge. You could actually there lift the luggages, test them. The week later, when I get back, there's only the ad and no more actual suitcases.
Oh, that's
I don't know why. Yeah, that was very bizarre. But I signed up to the competition to win one. So maybe at one point you'll have to mock me because I will.
Oh, no,
win
I
a
think
Blue
it will be
Smart.
very interesting to try it out.
And now it's removed. I went there, when was it? 2 days ago? Yesterday? We're recording today, May 31st. It was May 29th. I was again in that lounge. We'll talk about that BA bug that disrupted all travel because I saw the tail end of that. So Blue Smart has now disappeared and it's been replaced by another ad for yet another luggage. This time, I don't know if it's smart by the fact that there's like cables and what's not in the thing. Have you seen this luggage, which is like a composite plastic? You have one main luggage, a tray, and you can add another one on top. You can combine different aspects. It's like almost like a configurable suitcase. Have you seen that?
Oh, no, I haven't seen that one. I thought you were talking about the one that looks like it's kind of beat up and crappy, and you're supposed to use it in places where you might get hassled.
It's called Boogaboo. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. So
they make the
there's a chassis like with the wheels on top of it.
They make strollers. That's where they come from.
Yeah. And they have like they call it the boxer travel case, which is the main suitcase, which is a bit big. And on top, you can have a smaller one that you can attach on top of the big one. They have a booth, and the booth is actually really nice. I'm not sure I would actually buy that, but that's actually pretty cool.
Their strollers are like the Ferraris of strollers, of buggies. They're like 900 quid.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking
Maybe
about how
even
much
1,000. Yeah, there's one here that's 1,000.
Oh, well, see, I don't know how much this one actually costs, so I'm not going to buy that. But the interesting bit, this is what I want to
I'll tell you how much
Heathrow.
it'll cost. £800.
Oh my God, no way. I mean, come on. I mean, a Travel Pro or like a normal suitcase is like a good one. A very good one is $400 or $500, right?
Yeah, this is £800.
No, that's plus it's I like my suitcases that are a little bit flexible, so not like
Me
these,
too, yeah. I'm always surprised when people have those kind of metallic. I mean, they look great.
Yes,
Maybe that's why people get them. But I need a little bit of, flexibility, as you say.
Yeah, me too. I like the slightly expendable so you can adapt. I mean, I don't know. So I was flying to Edinburgh, first time in Scotland. It was a very short trip. And I arrived at the gate. They have now electronic gates at Heathrow T5. And 2 weeks ago, they weren't there.
Yeah, I was going to say, a couple of weeks ago, they certainly weren't there.
When you pass security, you have to tap your barcode, whether it's your phone or print out or whatever. That's what now I realized after the fact. It takes a picture of your face at the same time you do that. So when I went to that gate, I had to go through, even though I was premium, and I'll tell you why in a second, you do the same thing, and I guess you have to look at the camera, and the camera matches that it was the same face as before, because they don't have any other biometric information about you, I guess. So it's no passport involved or whatever. So interesting. I'll test that tomorrow morning. I'm flying to Madrid, so I'll see if anything changes.
Was it on all of the gates?
It seemed to be, I was at the Terminal A, so the A gates, the ones I've seen there were. I'll see tomorrow. I'll let you know tomorrow if I see that for more gates. But they seem to have installed these very recently, which is a good thing. We talked about Gatwick and all these automated airports are good, so I hope they multiply this. You mentioned you were in the standing room only, and that made me think, actually, that even when you do like priority boarding with BA, basically any kind of status with his bronze, silver, and obviously gold, can get access to it.
Yeah.
And pretty much the same for lounges, even though lounges are differentiated in big airports within, like Heathrow, obviously, because it's a hub airport. And I realized that actually on other airlines, like for instance Lufthansa, the priority boarding is reserved to business class and first class, if that exists, travelers, and gold status, only the highest ranking. Or BA, it seems like everybody is actually lining up on the priority boarding. Yeah,
and I think, lounge access, I think it's sensible to be a little bit more generous with it.
I agree.
Because to be fair to BA, my lounge experience in Orly was the exception, not the rule. Usually there's
Correct.
plenty of space no matter where you are in the world, except maybe San Francisco. It's a bit crappy there, but I think that's a temporary one. But the boarding thing drives me cuckoo bananas. It really does, because everybody has priority, therefore nobody has priority. And it's so inconsistently enforced. Some
Yes.
people are militant about it. And that's what I really appreciated at Cathay. They had a first and business class line for boarding, and then an economy and premium economy line. And then right before you board, they come along the line and they check your passport and your boarding pass. When they saw that I was first, they moved me over to a separate line.
I had a very similar experience in Paris because I was gold, so I was considered, I actually was in the first class line, although of course I was business class because I was gold, thus emerald on One World.
I was just going to say the gold people as well, or emerald on One World or Cathay's Marco Polo program. But yeah, that's really important. And actually, what's interesting, and I wonder if this will happen with those gates that you're experiencing at Schoenfeld, and we'll talk more about this towards the end of the show, you can't even go through security unless it's within 3 hours of your departure. But there's no one there. You scan your boarding pass and it says, too early, go get a beer.
I hate that.
I also hate that, but I think it's sensible so that if you've got a reasonably compact terminal, which they do post-security, it doesn't get crazy. I wonder if it'll get to the point where with those gates, you scan it and it's like you're not gold or whatever the actual thing is, you
don't get through.
Yeah, or even if it's like 65% of the quote-unquote priority passengers, gold, business, and first, have boarded. Therefore, we relax the criteria for people coming through.
The reason I was talking about Lufthansa's before is also they have in German airports these gates for quite a long time already. But if you are a business ticketed passenger, obviously first again, or if you have a senator, which is their gold, this line gets to a person. The person welcomes you, scans your boarding pass, and you enter. And after this goes through, including assistants and small children, then the rest of the passengers go through the gate. Whereas BA was everybody through the gate, besides again assistants and small children. So there's no right policy. I'm just saying it's interesting to see how different airlines create that same experience we were talking before about. Maybe Lufthansa believes that the fact that you're talking to someone because you're a valued customer to them makes a difference, and thus that's why they make you pass through, say hello to someone, for the rest not. I don't know, but it's interesting. I just hope that we never arrive at the system that they have in the US when you have like 25 sections and you don't know which section you are, and it's a whole mess, and people like get in fights. There was a fight, I think the other day, which airline was it? There was a video again, like it was people fighting because the flight was delayed and they fought in front of the gate. I mean, crazy stuff again. I mean, again and again and again. Like we're not going to dwell, by the way, guys, because we had other comments about these all disruptive passengers. I think we'll leave it aside for the moment. We'll come back to it at some point. We don't want to be talking about disruptive passengers in every episode and that Mr. Dow.
Yeah. It's
no matter how.
Again, it's the exception, not the rule, right?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And to that Edinburgh flight, it was really cool because on the way there, I was on the 321, the XBMI, so I had a life flight seat for 55 minutes. We always say to people, use obviously Seat Guru, because Seat Guru actually will tell you what are the best seats in a flight. The other tool that we mentioned a few times, but not enough probably, is something called Expertflyer, expertflyer.com, which doesn't really work well on mobile, by the way, guys. It's a website. So BA, was showing me there were multiple 321s during the day going to Edinburgh. I went on Expertflyer and you can have the live seat map of each of those flights, which seats are taken or not. And this is how you clearly recognize the 321 from BA and the 321 that used to belong to BMI. And those are the ones, there's very few that have lie flat seat in the front of the cabin. So I recognize the layout and I chose, of course, specifically that, which strangely was no more expensive than a 320. It was similarly priced. On the way back, I took the wide body, the 767.
Cool.
And it was actually less expensive than a 320. I don't know why, by the way. But
I don't know. That doesn't make any sense.
No, but that's why actually I chose it at first. I pressed, this is the cheapest, and it was a 767.
I'm sure there's a reason. I just can't figure it out.
And it was almost full, because these flights are almost commuter flights, because this was an early morning flight. That Express at Edinburgh will do Edinburgh one day as well. They have a pretty good lounge BA there, but I'll talk about it in another episode. The one thing that was really fun is that we got to this gate, exactly like you said, Edinburgh, the gate was the very last one of one of the piers, so there was impossible to create lines, so people were just stacked in front of it, and then they're starting calling, the people who have status, and people were like sorry and moving. I mean, even though with all the Britishness about respecting lines, it was just a mess. And we go to a bus. I'm like, oh my god, this is such a small airport that we have a bus. Why is it happening? And the bus goes and actually crosses the runway. I'm like, why? What? And then we go we're next to a warehouse, and like, what is going on here? And so amazing, the plane was parked in the cargo bay. So I had a DHL plane on the other side, a Star Air, which must be another cargo company that I never heard of, on the other side. In the middle, this wide-body BA 767. The captain let us know later that the reason they were parked there is that when they arrived, one of the wide bodies from another airline was late. They couldn't get a gate, so they made them park in the cargo area. So that was really fun. This is really cool, actually, to board next to a DHL flight. But it made us like 45 minutes late, because to transport all the passengers and apparently to put all the luggages, I guess these little trucks had to make a longer way. Everything was delayed. Anyway, it was a fun experience to go there.
And those are great, those 767s.
Yeah, like you said, they're vintage, right?
They're vintage, yeah. They have, I mean, I don't know about how yours was, but certainly last time I flew on one, there was like all the old CRT monitors. Although they've replaced the drop-down ones, haven't they?
Yes, they did.
With LCDs.
The seats seemed the same as 25 years ago. I think my plane was 25 years. The entire plane doesn't look to have to be upgraded, and I was telling you, there was one flight crew, very nice, and I'm not saying that negatively, who looked like Gandalf, and he was probably also as old as he was really great, by the way. Here, guys, I'm not mocking, I'm just saying this guy was like, he was like 85 and being like one of the main flight attendant. It was super cool, but it was like, yeah, the plane aged at the same time as the crew, and I don't think they're actually training new crews for that plane.
No, I can't imagine they would be. Or pilots.
Anyway, we're in the UK. Sorry, guys, we talked a lot about the UK, but I mean, the big news was this big bug that happened in London, and that domino effect all around the world for BA. Basically, the entire airline was grounded.
All over the world.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what happened, if we know?
I don't think we know. I don't think anybody has actually figured it out just yet. The story is that their entire IT infrastructure failed. Not just the reservation system, everything. So they couldn't load manifest. They couldn't even move airplanes. And so very quickly, when they realized, I think, the magnitude of this problem, all flights out of Gatwick and Heathrow were canceled. And then people
all inbound as well.
Yeah, all inbound as well. So they were basically, the whole airline shut down. And it took them a full day to even get any planes off the ground. And then it was sort of 35%, 75%, 100%. But they're still mopping up today. And what are we now? Wednesday today. This event happened on Saturday. And people's luggage is still waiting to be reunited with them. And I think everybody is where they're supposed to be. And of course, now the numbers are looking at around 150 million pounds in cost to BA in compensation, EU261 compensation, and, all of the other hotel accommodation and rebooking and all of that stuff that they're liable for on top of any potential lawsuits.
The cost people talk about from 90 to 300 million, depending on what you ask. I think you had that comment on Twitter the other day. I mean, they basically wiped out a lot of the cost-cutting measures they were trying by just a single day of incident.
Yeah, I mean, they've spent 3 years pinching the pennies. And, we said in a couple of episodes previous that maybe we're starting to see the fruits of this coming. Not anymore. They've just wiped out 3 years of penny pinching and of course, there's all of the armchair analysts and CEOs who have speculated that, not even speculated, that one of the biggest unions at BA have said this is because of IT outsourcing.
They just had to let go a lot of the IT people and outsource to a company in India. I don't remember the name.
Me neither. I think that the official line from BA was, I don't know if it still is, a massive electrical surge.
triggered the entire thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think...
But still, you're like, I know it's not relevant, but I remember living in Cyprus 2010. And it's a crazy story. The army, very cleverly, had left as storage of ammunitions and explosives next to the biggest power station in Cyprus, south of Cyprus. And because it was super hot during that summer, like temperatures reached like 50 degrees Celsius, well, that whole thing burst into flames and exploded and wiped out the brand new power unit they just had built. So I was living through brownouts. I mean, I'm not complaining. Whatever. But I had like these UPS units that basically, make sure that your computer doesn't explode because the power just goes erratically. It seems a bit... I don't know. It's a very armchair analysis. I totally see that, but it seems a bit much that a power surge would have such an effect on the entire IT system, that the backups didn't go in place, that nothing happened. There should be redundancy in the system. If the main system fails, the secondary system takes over, and usually it's fully backed up and synchronized.
Yeah.
Maybe this time it was not synchronized. I don't know what happened, but clearly something wrong happened to have no system at all.
Yeah, I think that's the real criticism here, is that if their backup system was in place, it sounds like that during this transition of IT coverage, irrespective of if it was just within the organization or outsourced, that there was one of the things that fell through the cracks was the expertise for spinning up the backup systems. And from the last coverage that I read, they were able to spin up the backup system, but so much was out of sync.
Yeah, exactly. That's also what I read as well. Unsynchronized data.
Yeah.
So they had to go back a few days before to a point where the data was in sync and restart from there. Because it was crazy stories. There were people stranded, obviously, because Heathrow especially was full chaos. And people were actually already checked in, so they're already airside. And there was a story of this guy, at the gate. He would scan his boarding pass, and one time he would say Oslo. And if he would rescan the second time his boarding pass, the second time he would say Buenos Aires. So the system was completely out of whack. He couldn't, I guess, of course they had to shut everything down because they couldn't know which passenger was going where, with the luggage was, where the airplane were. I mean, it's really massive in the chaos. I mean, of course, we've seen chaos like that. They were like last year, like I think was it Delta that had also like a massive IT issue, and they had to cancel 3,000 flights. But for some reason, in the Delta case, although it was big, it seemed that the recovery time to go back online and fly people seemed like smaller. People to this day are still being rebooked. So the company said that they will rebook you free of charge until November, any flight until November, or fully reimburse you, which, by the way, will also cost them a lot of money. Yeah. But during the 3 days, let's say 2.5 days of chaos, since they had no system, you couldn't even get rebooked because they couldn't even know what you were. So let's say you, Alex, are at Heathrow about to fly BA, and you say, can you get me on a CX flight to Hong Kong instead? Since they have no data about you, they couldn't do that. People were simply locked. And because they were airside, the time to go out of the terminal, because it's not made for a lot of people to go out at the same time, the line to go out of the terminal, Heathrow basically asked people to leave the terminal, was 5 hours. You had to wait for 5 hours just to being able to have your passport checked back to go out. I mean, what a mess.
You know what's crazy, though? When this happened, IAG, who are the parent company of British Airways, their stock went through the floor. But it's right back where it was already.
Yeah, but that's like United, right?
Yep.
It's they're making money. I mean, let's be, the cost-cutting measures made them money. I mean, now we'll see what happens. For me, the one thing that I was not really sure about was the entire response. When you remember for those old enough to remember, or maybe living in the UK, I was not at the time, when the T5 opened, there was a massive chaos as well. There, the luggage system was not working, et cetera, and the then CEO of BA was there and was talking to the press live at all points. Here, the CEO of BA, Alex Cruz, did 2 videos on Twitter.
Yeah, those were weird.
Explaining the first one. That jacket?
Yeah, he was wearing a high-vis vest
Yellow,
in an IT control room.
Are you guys digging a hole to escape Heathrow, or why do you have an high-vis jacket when there's an IT problem?
It was bizarre.
I mean, I guess the signal was to say, we're working on it. We're doing something. And also, there've been leaks about the way the crisis was managed inside, where basically it was either you help us, you shut up. I mean, company morale and employee morale must be very, very low. I cannot mention, but I actually had a conversation with someone from IAG recently, post-crisis. And the word is that they don't even know what actually triggered the entire shutdown. They still, the official line is a power surge, but they don't know. And that it's chaos inside.
I bet. I'm sure that there are a lot of people who have had very little sleep in the last few days, and they weren't responsible for it, but they had to fix it. And I'm sure that they were the same people who kept pointing out perhaps inefficiencies or deficiencies in whatever program failed. And I told you so isn't going to get 150 million pounds of revenue back.
So the big question: do you think that Alex Cruz must go?
Yeah.
He said repeatedly over the last 24 hours that he won't be going anywhere. Again, the company makes money, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, as a shareholder, you look at the share price and you're like, well, it hasn't really cost us any money in the long term in terms of share value, but somebody's got to take responsibility because you've ruined a lot of people's plans.
Yeah, with those who have no context, it was an extended weekend in the UK, plus it was holidays for the kids. So there was a lot of families going for sometimes a yearly vacation.
Hotel reservations, rental cars, honeymoons, wedding. And I know that in the big scheme of things, you'll get over it and it's all fine. But,
of course, clearly.
If you feel bad for those people, and if he's going to get a fat bonus in a quarter or two, I'd be pissed. I'd be really angry. Yeah. And I'd love to know who's going to fall on the sword for this, frankly.
And they should just simply hire Christoph Muller, right?
Yeah, or someone like Carolyn McCall.
No,
I mean, it would be I love EasyJet, even though they pissed me off with the delay recently. But I like them, and I think that she would be great for them. But I don't
agree.
I don't know if it's going to happen. I really don't know if it's going to happen.
No, I don't know. Guys, I told you I was at Heathrow on Terminal 5 on Monday morning early. It was better. The official line of BA and Heathrow is, if you don't have a ticket, do not come to the airport. And if you have a ticket, you're not allowed in the terminal 90 minutes before you actually fly, which for me, 90 minutes is always like, well, I'd like to be a bit early like you.
And they had cops. They had the police.
Yeah, they had to. Yeah, crowd control. There was also, this is where, I'm like a bit, there was this person that was in line in Terminal 5 having all this issue, and he just shouted, shame on BA. And BA sent the police, and now BA has unofficially blacklisted, or at least put a mark on his name next time he flies BA. What is this? I mean, people, come on. I understand that someone is maybe, angry, and he was just shouting shame on BA. He didn't attack anyone. It's a bit sad the way, this whole crisis, in terms of crisis management, it doesn't look the best way to handle all this.
No, it absolutely. And I think, your point earlier about the culture there at the moment is being brought to life in the front line. When that of course is ridiculous what happened to that was reported by the Gulliver in The Economist, right? That he wrote a scathing article because he was there trying to fly out and his flight was delayed 8 hours, something like
8 hours, something like that.
And the way that they handled that was really bad. I got barked at on my flight back from Paris for my bag being too big, and I was like, I've just done London, Hong Kong, Frankfurt, Paris on all non-BA characters, and no one blinked an eye at my bag. I don't understand why it's a problem. But she just talked to me like she was my teacher, and I was in the first grade.
And you have status, right?
Yeah, but I don't, it could have...
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that people without guys, I'm not saying that people without status should be barked on and not people with status. Mm-hmm. But if you have status, guys, you realize that suddenly people look at you slightly differently and they will actually let you get away with more things. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's more...
no, you're right.
High standard, but that's...
We are better
that's why I'm surprised.
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to edit this out, Alex.
But no, you're right. I think it's you look at a customer that spends a lot of money, and again, Paul and I spend a lot of our time in our big boy jobs looking at customer experience. And one of the things you do is, yes, you understand and are able to identify and not reward, but make them feel welcome, these repeat customers who bring you value. But then you also do the little things that make the people that are new to your experience feel like they're welcome and that you are different from everybody else. And they didn't do either of that.
And they also, the good companies also empower their employees,
Absolutely.
Like you said, the front line to try to solve something. At some point, of course, they were overwhelmed. Even Twitter account from BA stopped responding. I guess they were overwhelmed, so I'll give them a free pass here.
Yeah.
But there were videos, and I'm always uneasy about these videos. We had to talk about that in the last episode, but there were videos of, because again, they would ask passengers if they had no data about you, since all the systems instance, went down, they said, please go and submit a claim. By the way, the BA website was down. So between the moment where you were at the airport and the next rebooking, you were on your own. And there were some people saying, yeah, but I have no money to spend 4 nights in a hotel.
Yeah.
And you have this video, for instance, that was not in London when one of the BA frontline says, well, if you don't have any money, it's not BA's problem. I mean, this is not an answer you give to a passenger who's distraught, right? And I'm not blaming even the frontline. I'm not saying that every frontline is a great person. I'm not an idealist. But if you give proper training and empower these people, sometimes it gets better than, she was clearly being attacked by passengers. So I'm, again, giving her a benefit of the doubt. But sometimes it seems that the culture is not right there as well.
And I have to give, while I remember, it's really important to me that when we were in Orly and we were dealing with this, it was 4.5 hour delay in the end. The ground services team, who I am 99% sure were a third-party ground handling company, they worked their butts off. They were literally running around the terminal getting information. They found a way to keep the little sandwich shop open way beyond their closing time and provided these delicious baguettes to the entire flight free of charge and paid for it with their own money. I'm assuming they'll be compensated, but they just worked their socks off, and no one gave them any hassle, nor should they have, because I think there would have been a lot of people who would have stood up for those folks because it was a weather delay. They had nothing to do with it, and they just handled it really well. They worked hard.
I'll also commend also the staff at Heathrow and also Gatwick, although I've seen less images out of Gatwick. People were handed out water and, so because Heathrow is not responsible for BA's disruption. And the staff, although overwhelmed, they made an effort. It looked like, of course, it was chaos. Of course, you're unhappy when it happens to you. Of course, people get angry and you don't want to be stuck and you're missing your holidays. So it's never going to be like easy to resolve. But the images show clearly that Heathrow staff were trying their best they had no information because I guess there was no data, so they couldn't say anything, but they were handing out bottles of water and stuff. So we were trying. I think in that case, Heathrow was probably more prepared to handle that situation than BA. I'm not sure. I'm not here to diss BA or flight BA. More often than not, the experience is great. I just flew them many times this month. I know we have status, so sometimes we might be also considered slightly differently. It's true that when you have status, for instance, when there's a rebooking, you placed higher in the list, meaning you will be rebooked super quickly compared to someone who has no status. So we know. By the way, have you seen that on Twitter? I think there was the Associated Press. I think I retweeted that. I'll put it again maybe on the Twitter feed. There was this video that was made. They filmed 2 people, one person with...
that was so interesting.
With status and the other one without. And I get that maybe some even other listeners, although I guess that a lot of listeners here are AV geeks and probably know their travel, etc. We know, this is why I started the show by First World Problem. We know that some of our experiences, besides even being the premium cabin, because we've traveled a lot, because we're used to it, because we have status, is not what most people experience. We totally get that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think it should change the overall customer experience ethos and culture within organization. And I think that that's where the Asian carriers it's a bit of a generalization, but I think it's an accurate one, can compete even if the product is inferior. But I think what this has really exposed with BA is that if they didn't have Fortress Heathrow and had all those juicy slots, they would be in a lot of trouble.
Probably.
So who knows? I'm sure this isn't going to be the last time we talk about this. We'll have to wait and see what the eventual fallout is. But wow, that was that dominated the headlines here in the UK for a few days.
I'll finish with a quote of the end of the article of The Economist that you mentioned earlier. BA has a dominant position in terms of takeoff slots at Heathrow, Europe's busiest hub. On the basis of this weekend's performance, it does not deserve it.
That's definitely worth keeping in the back of our minds. I don't think anything is going to change, but I kind of agree.
Yep. So let's stay in Europe. EBACE is a trade show that happens in Geneva on the tarmac of Geneva Airport. It's for business jets, so it's really catered to corporates or very high net worth individual. I was lucky to go there a few years ago, twice actually, and to sit in these fantastic private jets, which reminds me, I have to tell you about the Bigging Hill story at some point.
Yeah, we really need to get that because I've been waiting to hear about this.
I'm building suspense for the next episode. And usually, these planes are Gulfstreams and a few, special VIP 737s, etc., etc. But this time, a market that is super tiny, but 380s for head of states.
I love this. This article is hilarious where it talks about the head of state market. They're gonna put them into the head of state market. Like that's a thing. You know,
380s.
it's like the millennial market, right? The born digital and then the head of state.
I'm born super rich. That's my
Yeah.
like.
Well, yeah, exactly. Oh my God, I love it because Singapore Airlines apparently are ditching the 380, which I think is a shame. But they came out and said this a couple of years ago that they weren't going to renew the leases, and so these planes are being offered to the head of state market. So you might see very, very soon a VVIP A380, and there's already 747-8, a few of them.
Yeah,
and,
actually, a few of them. Yeah.
Dreamliners. I'm sure there's an A350 at Toulouse somewhere that's being worked on for somebody special. But,
Yeah, but the 380, that's really big.
I know,
my
man.
God.
I think it's crazy. I think that since the 380 secondary market is just not materializing, that you'll actually be able to snap one up for pretty cheap, all things considered. Because what are they going to do? Scrap them?
Do you want to buy one? Do we like
Let's just do a layovers 380. Yeah,
Kickstarter
Kickstarter, there you
campaign?
go.
Guys, do you want to offer us? We need to find also a space to park it, but don't worry, we'll take good care of it. But you said two things very important. First is like Singapore Airlines hasn't ordered any new ones, so basically they're ditching the 380. For context, usually the expected timeline lifetime of these are like 12 years.
Yeah.
That's where which there will be a glut at some point because some of the Emirates A380s will also arrive at 12 years. What will happen with them? There's not enough head of states that have enough money. Even if every head of state in the world could afford one, at some point there's no secondary market for these things. I don't know.
No, there isn't. And I think that's kind of what panicked Airbus. And Emirates, we talked about this several episodes ago. You know, they see these as having a 10-year lifespan, and they have no qualms about just putting them in the desert or whatever makes the most financial sense.
Yeah, but
that's what they modeled against.
Some of the lease companies that took a risk on going for those ones will have some of these big birds on their hands. This is why they're playing with that. They say, okay, we're gonna refit these planes for head of states.
They have
or
to
very
make
rich
a
individuals.
market.
Remember, it was the Prince Al Walid from Saudi Arabia. That was like, 10 years ago almost? Because at the very beginning, Airbus was thinking of doing 380s for VVIPs. We're talking, 10 years ago, almost at the launch of the product. And I remember this amazing image of Prince Al Walid coming down at Dubai Air Show from his 747 VVIP and going in front of the Airbus and signing the order and saying, okay, he's going to do the first one. And then he ditched the order, by the way. He never actually says he was never a VVIP, but that was the only guy that ever thought about getting one. So now you have 4 of them for the head of state market. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe, I don't know. Let's create our own state, Alex.
Yeah, there you go. It'll be the new must-have accessory for the ultra rich.
By the way, before we go to the last news and then to the airport, I don't have it in front of me, but I read that BA has put an interest in the Chinese Comac.
I did not see that. That's surprising.
They're not making a proper order or whatever, but they're looking at it as an option. Huh. So I don't know if it's a pressure to any other manufacturer, but they're looking at it. So interesting, right? And talking about that was not supposed to be in the news as well, but have you seen that Boeing is like attacking Bombardier, telling them they're heavily subsidized?
Yeah. Come on, that's the pot calling the kettle black if I've ever seen it.
I do agree. I don't think any airline buys any airplane on the price tag. No. There's always discounts. And this time, of course, they say that, Canada helped Bombardier. The Bombardier was able to sell for Delta things. Anyway, I like Bombardier. I like their planes. And more competition is good. One piece of news about one app that I keep using. It's a bit of a game. It's called JetLovers. I've mentioned it several times. The one reason I actually like JetLovers is that it works by simply following your data on Facebook, Foursquare, and Twitter. So I use mostly Foursquare for that. So if you put like London Heathrow as your last check-in with Foursquare, and then the next one is, let's say, but Schoenfeld for you, it will automatically create the route. And then on the website itself, which is mobile friendly, you can put the flight number, and that's the bit I really like. It automatically finds the registration number out of the database.
Nice.
So I use it to simply have the registration number of all my flights. I don't really care about how many miles I've flown, etc. It gives you some nifty stats, etc., about how many flights you flew this month and how many miles this month and what were the best years, etc. So you might like jetlovers.com. The reason I mentioned it, they are releasing, I think it's new.jetlovers.com. They're releasing a new design. It's pretty cool, guys. If you like this geeky stuff, check it out. It's worth actually checking it out. And now to Schoenfeld. So how is it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What are the context of you going there?
We were there filming Attaché, which I'll be out in a couple of weeks. I hadn't really spent much time in Berlin before, so I was really enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, the airport is, well, Berlin Brandenburg was supposed to open in 2010, and at that point, both Tegel and Schönfeld were supposed to start winding down their operations. Here we are, 2017, and we've talked about this in previous episodes. The airport is still at least 2 years away from opening, and not only that, far from winding down their operations, it sounds like Tegel and Schönfeld are going to stay open indefinitely to pick up the slack for the 7+ years of delays from Berlin Brandenburg. Yeah, it feels very temporary. It's not an unpleasant airport. It's small. It's primarily the hub for the low-cost carriers. We went out on EasyJet, and there were a lot of Ryanair flights there. El Al fly there. A lot of the low-cost Norwegian had a lot of flights in and out of there. It's small. You can tell they've bolted things on to try and keep to keep up with this growing capacity. To get in, there's a train station, so you can take the S-Bahn, which leaves more frequently, but actually...
How long does it take to go to the city with
Well, if you take the S-Bahn, it actually stops all the time, so it takes quite a while. If you take the regional trains, which only leave every half an hour, they hardly stop at all, and you can be at Hauptbahnhof in about 30 minutes.
Okay, it's good, because I think Tegel is slightly closer than Schönfeld.
But it's only bus.
Yeah, and Schönfeld is southeast, and Tegel is northwest. Yeah, I think. Okay.
So yeah, for us, the timings worked out because we wanted to get there super early in the morning, film all day the next day, and then fly out late that night. And that worked out. Actually, we got a little extra time because our EasyJet flight was delayed leaving. But when you check in, I was saying to Nick, who was filming the episode with me, and you go through, you're going to your gates, it really feels like you're in a kind of refugee processing facility. It's like, it's dark and cement walls and flickering fluorescent lights and damp puddles everywhere. And then they take you into this sort of porta-cabin type thing, and then you get on a bus and you go out and experience it. But what's weird is that Berlin is just a weird place for airports, not just because of the Brandenburg thing, but Tempelhof, which was the airport from the 1930s until 2008, I believe, is still there. And when it was open, for a long time, it was one of the 20 biggest buildings on Earth. And it's this huge 1930s kind of curved, beautiful building, if you can sort of set aside its original intent in your brain and appreciate it just purely architecturally. It's stunning. And they put it to the people of Berlin, what should we do with this when it's no longer an actual airport? Should we tear it down? And they said, no, let's turn it into a park. And so it is like all of the buildings are being repurposed for, like there's a startup incubator in there, and there's a few other offices.
There's an event space as well.
Yeah, there's event space, and they're turning it into, it's all quite temporary, but they're working hard to turn it into something more permanent. But the airfield itself is a park. So you can go and do your morning jog on one of the two runways. We went on a long walk around, like on the taxiways, and all of the taxiway signage is still there. All of the lights and the lighted signs are all still there. I posted a couple of pictures on Instagram. Yep. So that was so cool. When you look back at this terminal, what you really appreciate is not only the sheer size of it, but that the maintenance hangars were underneath the terminal. There's no gates, of course. This was kind of pre-gates. And so you have this beautiful curved structure with the elevated terminals above it. And then you would almost have this like garage door that would open to hold these beautiful DC-3s and DC-4s if you project back onto it in time. But so yeah, it's so cool that you can do that. It's kind of a pain to figure out how you get in, but once you do, it's beautiful. And then what's weird is like going back to Schönfeld for a second. As I mentioned earlier, you cannot go before 3 hours, and there's very, very few facilities there, except what I would suggest is the worst lounge that I've ever been in. Like it's up these back stairs, and you go in, and there's a disinterested guy who completely disregarded the lounge club membership that I had. He's like, you bring your friend in, I don't care. There was like the tables had not been cleared for hours. The food there wasn't really any, and that Nick was brave and he ate it. He's still alive.
You're describing the old BA lounge at Athens airport. But anyway, go on. It was a disaster. Is it? So we were challenging each other. Of course, I didn't go to that lounge, so I cannot judge it. For me, the worst lounge ever, and I'm going to go back in a few weeks, is in Pisa airport in Italy, which is also like run down, and there's not even seating, and it looks like you're like in 1935, and with actually 1935, never refurbished, actually. But was it the only lounge, or was it the only ones you could have access to?
It was the only lounge that I could see, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, I know, because it's a low-cost carrier airport / terminal, so there really wasn't much there at all. The view was out over to the tarmac. Weirdly, there was this sort of open air. If you've been to Stuttgart Airport, on top of Stuttgart Airport is this huge observation area. There was a little mini one of those, clear with benches and everything, but no way to get into it, and there was no one on it, so it's clearly been shut down. But you had reasonable views from over the tarmac, and of course on the other side of the airfield is Berlin Brandenburg, just sitting there, seemingly done, but obviously not.
I think it's a wiring or something. Remember
the wiring for the fire detection system. I think
it's not on spec, and they cannot open it because they're not sure that whether there's a fire, the doors will close automatically or whatever. Wow,
it's just craziness. So
because it taunts you because you see it right there, like. Guys, it's sitting there. It's like when you go, and I'll go back this summer, when you go to Manila, I mean, now it's changed because they opened it. There was for a long, long time, for other stories, and we'll talk about it in one episode, there was for the longest time a brand new terminal, and trust me, Manila Airport is one of the worst in the world. And you could see they are standing, like, guys, why are we not using that brand new thing? And we're going here. So, yeah, probably you must have that kind of feeling.
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing to be able to see this brand new but totally useless airport across the. I mean, the nice thing was you take a bus and you wind your way through all of these airplanes, and other than that, it was fine. Everybody there was pretty friendly, but strange airport situation going on, good and bad in Berlin.
So not good for a layover.
No, I don't know what Tegel was like. I can't comment on that, but Schoenfeld, absolutely not.
Well, that's one more reason for them to actually open this freaking new airport. I really hope they do. So next time, will you try Tegel instead?
Yeah, I think so. It cannot be as bad. I mean, Schoenfeld as an airport really wasn't that bad. It does its job. We were off the plane and walking to the train station in 3 minutes. So, and that's the kind of litmus test for a really good airport. And it passed with flying colors.
I agree.
It's just a weird situation as an airport ecosystem for a city.
Yeah, that reminds me, actually, now when you land on final, if you're seated on the left-hand side of the plane with a window view at Athens Airport, which opened in 2001, you can still see next to the sea it's called Ellinikon, the old airport. It's still there. You can still see the runway. And I wish they would actually do a park or something, because this is a great space to do something. Yeah. It would. I mean, of course, I get it. Greece is a crisis and whatever, but I mean, it's there, right? Or just organize runs, or making like as a car circuit or something.
Yeah,
it would be so
just
so,
like
so
they've
cool.
done that with a couple of the airports here in the UK.
The other thing that you mentioned, the architecture, I'm also always baffled, and you must have seen it when you are on the tarmac at Frankfurt Airport, and you see this huge hangar from Lufthansa Technik, and it is like this architecture with like spikes and everything.
Yeah.
I don't need like super commanding like this. I really love it.
Fortress
actually. I always take
Lufthansa,
pictures.
big time.
Anyway, next flights, Alex?
Next flight, Madrid, just like you.
Oh, yeah. Hold on.
I'm not doing it. I can't make it work. So there is a LATAM have a flight from Frankfurt to Madrid on a 787 that I was trying to figure out if I could do. I just can't make it work. I might try and do it on the way back, but I'm flying EasyJet because it's because they fly 400 times a day to Madrid. I can pick whatever time I want, essentially, to go. So I may do it on the way back. We'll see if I can make the timing work. But it's so cool I only discovered it, as I was telling Paul, because
I had no idea.
Someone wrote a trip report on airliners about taking this positioning flight from Frankfurt to Madrid in this beautiful LATAM 787 with what looks to be a very, very good business class product for it was like £100.
Yeah, it's super cheap.
Yeah.
So you were telling me that I was in an event yesterday, and whilst I was at the event, I was not listening. I was like, what? There's a LATAM flight. Because I go Madrid every month. I'm like, next time and I found that it does that. I only checked 1 week because I was in an event. I needed to pay attention. I found it on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday night. Always like 7:30-ish, something
right.
p.m. It goes to Madrid. So I will try to use it. It's really, I mean, people must laugh at us going through strange freaking routes to go to Madrid where there's a direct, but this is really, really
fun,
interesting.
yeah, and it's a chance to experience an airline I'm probably not going to try, and they're one world, so I get my miles and
exactly.
points.
I used to fly the predecessors of LATAM, TAM and LAN, back then in South America, but having that in Europe, which is a fifth freedom, by the way, is really, really, really cool. So I'm really trying. I hope they keep the service a little bit, because I already booked, so tomorrow to my flights. I'm going to Madrid tomorrow morning, so the 1st of June, super early. 777 away there, and back the next day on Friday with Iberia codeshare.
Nice.
With 340. So
Nice.
Again, two white bodies to go to.
Isn't that crazy?
But I was not expecting the 777 to go there from BA. I guess
every
maybe
morning they do that
position
first flight.
Oh, but you know what? Yeah, I forgot to tell and I'll finish about that. I know, guys, that we're super long today. I did Paris Charles de Gaulle to London with Air France. Every year I do one SkyTeam flight just to keep my miles because I have a lot of them. I don't want to lose them. And it was the Dreamliner, the 787-9
So cool.
that Air France just acquired. And, I thought that, well, they're doing that, to display the plane at first and to do simply like trials and everything. Apparently not. So maybe it will change, but the flight was completely full. And I realized that it's a flight that leaves at 7:30. We were late, but anyway, at 7:30 and arrive at 7:55 in London because there's a 1 hour difference.
Oh, yeah.
It's a perfect commuter flight.
But don't you think
And
that
it
they
was-
would have just thrown a clapped out 777 on it?
I don't know. I mean, probably at some point they'll revert to that. I don't know what they had before, but it proved that a 320, even a 321, would not have enough seats to cater.
No.
And of course, it was life flight seat. For some reason, I found the life flight seat on this Dreamliner of Air France, which is a much better seat that they used to have, but slightly below the quality of the one I saw on the 777
Oh,
when I
that's
went to
interesting. I wonder if
Beirut
it's a different
last
seat.
year. It's similar to Cathay and all this, like this herringbone.
Yeah.
It's probably the same manufacturer with less, fantastic stuff. And it's a good seat. I'm not, come on, again, we started with that. We'll finish at that first world problem when we complain about a business class seat, because honestly, going on a life flight seat for 45 minutes is really a first world problem,
Yeah.
right? On that, Alex, we'll record hopefully very soon because we travel slightly less this month. So we should be able to record within the next 2 weeks. And, thank you guys for all making the last episode actually one of our more successful ones in
Yeah,
terms
thank
of
you for listening.
audience. Oh, Mastication Nation. Alex went rogue. He actually has his own podcast now, bastard.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah, thanks
really-
for mentioning it.
It's a really, really, really cool podcast. Thank you for the shout out, by the way.
No,
with
no
episode
problem.
2.
All about food.
First one was on avocado. I don't eat avocado. And second one on burgers, letter B. Also very controversial. We agree on... We are eye to eye on most
things,
stuff.
yeah.
Most
It's
things. but not
I was
everything.
surprised by the amount of controversy and conversation that it generated. But yeah, it's been fun. I do it with my little brother, Will. Little brother, I shouldn't call him that. My brother, Will.
Guys, subscribe. I'll put the link in the show notes whenever I actually put the show notes on, because I've not done it for 4 episodes. It seems that nobody actually cares that I put the show notes or not. If you actually do care, tell me. Right now, I'm super busy to do them. But please complain to me, not to Alex, to me, that I forgot to do the show notes. I promise you I'll put them back. And on that, safe travels.
Safe travels, guys.